Welcome to Relentless Pursuit with Marjorie Dudley. Real conversations with entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders who refuse to settle. This isn't about overnight success. It's about the decisions, discipline, setbacks, and standards that shape extraordinary results. If you're building something that matters, you're in the right place.
I got a 3, 2, 1.
Videos in the room may appear lower quality than the recordings. Isn't this software cool? I'm pretty excited about it.
It is.
Erin, hi.
Hey.
I've known you forever. Do you remember how we met?
We met at a party because you were wearing, was it Detroit or Michigan sweatshirt?
Yes.
Yes.
Probably both.
We met at someone's party.
We did. I thought we met at the Chamber of Commerce. So was the party first and then we saw each other at a Chamber of Commerce meeting?
Well, it could be similar to bus ads. Sometimes you just don't know that you already saw it.
What order?
And then all of a sudden you just make that solid connection that somebody is from Michigan, just like their mother.
That's crazy. So tell people about you, like something interesting, fun, your how'd you get here version.
Well, it was March 29th, 1977.
It's a great day.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I was raised in Oregon, but I left and moved to Denver when I was 24, which I think just opened up a land of opportunity for me. And I managed to find my way into the spa industry, which then brought me back home to create Phiz Spa here in Salem. And then, yeah, it kind of feels like the rest is history from there.
So I find this interesting.
Though. I don't know. You tell me.
So I find this interesting because I was raised in Michigan and left for Oregon. Actually, technically Washington first, but that was short-lived. Why did you leave Oregon for Denver?
Well, I would say that Salem particularly is like the smallest big town or the biggest small town. And having been raised here in certain cultural groups, it kind of felt like there wasn't a lot of space for growth for me. And so I think that my mind wanted, or my heart wanted, to explore new adventures. And at the time, I knew several people already in Denver, Colorado. So it was the safest way to go somewhere. And quite frankly, Denver and Oregon, or Colorado and Oregon, have a lot of similarities. So it was really the safest place for me to explore something new, a different land, but also learn more about myself and what my interests were without the confusion of just the culture that I was living in.
So you knew people going there, but did you have a job lined up or did you land completely blind?
Well, yes and no. I had some administrative jobs that were some interviews that were planned, and I moved there September 9th, 2001. And then 2 days later, September 11th happened. And the whole world kind of shifted, and job opportunities really dwindled, and there was just obviously a lot of fear at that time. And so I found myself working at a Starbucks. And I did that for several months, and what a place to be in a big city. Obviously, the world kind of confused and scared, but to be working at a coffee shop and at 24 years old, and just kind of the world in front of you, I would say that gave me some time to explore what my passions were, and I certainly went down the administrative roles that I thought were for me. But then I found myself interviewing for a spa job at a spa that was inside this athletic center. And before you knew it, I was interested in doing more than just reception and decided to go to cosmetology school.
So for people who don't know, you own an incredible med spa in Salem, Oregon. And the title
Yes.
of this series is Relentless Pursuit. So it's all about people who've maybe gone through some things to get where they are. What would you say are what's been a defining challenge for you that in overcoming it, got you on the path for where you are now?
Well, there's lots of challenges in owning a business, lots of challenges in expanding your business, and lots of challenges in this industry per se, and some that I don't feel like I have overcome. But I would say that in this industry, I started off with a strong desire for integrity. I felt like this industry, the spa salon world, is known for being cutthroat and not collaborative, but more competitive. And so that was a purpose for me from the start to overcome any of that because it's a commission based industry. So usually commission based jobs have that money is mine. I want that money. And I was able to work with people, which I think defined me as not just who I worked with, but I think the client also noticed that. And it helped build a business for me that's based off of that level of integrity. And so I think that I overcame the stereotype of the industry. And then I think just my administrative skill set allows me to do the things that this industry normally falls short in. And that would be, with it, whether it was one of the first people in town to have an online scheduling system or be organized with our social media or, making sure that I did the research around our products and our services. So I think that administrative piece is kind of what set me apart to build Phiz Spa and build it well and fast.
And for those of you who don't know, Erin is incredibly meticulous, detail-oriented, organized. It is definitely one of your strengths of the spa and just things you bring to the table. Did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or when did that finally hit you?
I remember at a young age, well, I mean, like high school maybe age, my dad always saying that I would be an entrepreneur, but I don't think I had any real clue what that meant. It's funny to me now because it feels like people think that that's a really respectable title, or that it's a respectable job to be an entrepreneur, but it's not. I mean, I don't find it to be nearly as glamorous as people think it is. And so I knew it was a lot of hard work. I don't think I quite knew how much hard work it was going to take and how all consuming it was going to be. But I don't think I ever had pursuits to do it on my own. I think it was a natural progression because I tend to have really efficient ways of doing things and thinking my way is more efficient than others. So I should probably just do it myself instead of rely on somebody else.
Yeah. As someone who coaches a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, I see that there's a lot of assumptions, misconceptions. What do you feel like is something that maybe you didn't know about entrepreneurship before really launching? Because you have your own skincare line, you have your own spa, you have a lot of continuing education and certifications and things under your belt. What is something you sort of learned the hard way that if someone else was maybe considering going into business, particularly in the spa industry, but maybe any business ownership role, that you would say, make sure you look into this or make sure you understand this?
I feel like one of the repetitive conversations I have with people who don't understand the entrepreneurship is the work-life balance conversation. And I don't know that, and I mean, I'd love for an entrepreneur that's doing it well to prove me wrong, but I think in my industry, since we trade hours for dollars and it's hands-on client care, I don't know that there is such thing as a balance that people would feel comfortable with, especially if they have families or other interests or other hobbies that are a real priority to them. So for me, I am my business and my business is me. It's been hard to distinguish between the two. and there is no time off.
Yeah.
I would say even just this holiday season, I had a ton of people who are trying to reach out because they're off, and they assume that they can get a hold of me, and I'm sitting here not with the responsibility to respond. I can set that boundary for myself, but also knowing that that's just going to create more work for me down the road, or what's my level of responsibility just to respond and answer these questions or get these appointments scheduled and do all of that. So I would say work life balance, if life and other things in your life are a really high priority, then work is going to suffer,
So what I kind of hear
or
you
vice versa.
saying, or what I've also seen too, and tell me if this is what you're alluding to, is while maybe going into business for yourself, you have the freedom to choose where and when you spend your time. There's a little bit of a misnomer that you're going to have a lot of downtime, or like it's going to be more work and more hours, particularly if you're building something from the ground up. It's not just going to be, oh, I started a business and now let me go play 20, 30, 40
Well,
hours a
I'll
week.
tell you, when I interview somebody to work and I ask them why they got in this industry, and their answer is because of the flexibility, I know then and there that they are interested in not working. They're figuring out ways to life and then try and work around it. In my industry, flexibility means that you're available for when the client needs you. So that doesn't mean that I get to pick my hours, because if my hours aren't in alignment with when a client wants to come in, then I'm not working. And if I'm not working, I'm not making money and my business isn't growing. So to me, flexibility is not my flexibility, it's flexibility for the client.
For the client. And
And so,
that's
yeah,
probably
I
what's
don't
helped
see
you
that.
grow, is your client focused. I mean, you've always been really client focused. What are, in addition to being time focused for the client, what are some of the other things that you've learned along the way, or maybe always had, that put the client perspective, client needs first? What in that regard has made you so successful?
Well, I was told a long time ago the saying, the client is always right, is not about if there is conflict, the client's right and you're wrong. The origin of that saying is the client dictates what products you use, what services you use. The client is always the one who determines your business.
Mm.
And that could be so different in Salem, Oregon versus Florida versus Colorado, what a client's needs are, and and when they want to be seen, and what products are going to work in your climate and culture. So to me, it was always a matter of having my finger on the pulse of what the client is talking about. And that has really shown up more recently in my business, where it was all well and good when I first started to do bikini waxes and tans and relaxing facials. That might have been something that our culture needed, or our culture here needed or wanted. But now the conversations almost redundantly are about menopause and skin health and skin response to using fast acting weight loss, just an overall vitality. So because of that, my business has shifted. The type of skincare that I offer, the type of products that I offer, we're delving into peptide use now to help with internal vitality. And so just always kind of paying attention to what the client who's coming to see me is concerned about.
How have you done that? Because I notice you have done that. One of the examples I think of is when your fancy line went away from kind of over the counter grade, and correct my language, but over the counter grade to more medical grade, and even going into the
Yeah.
advanced aesthetics. So how have you been able to stay sort of on the front line, or the cutting edge of what people want? Maybe even before they want it, or maybe before there's mass demand for it. You're not responding to demand, but you're almost creating demand. How have you been able to do that, anticipate that, kind of see where, to steal a Wayne Gretzky quote, see where the puck is going? How have you been able to?
Right. Well, I mean, I would say it really comes down to, listening to the client. And there is this inherent part of me that if I'm not able to meet that client's need, and then there's two clients that mention it and three clients, I'm like, well, wait a second, what is this need and how can I learn about it? And so, in sitting there and doing an airbrush tan on someone, and while we're in there, they're complaining about these brown spots on their skin or a myriad of things that we would talk about, then it creates that curiosity in me. And so I would say first is I would probably start looking stuff up online and doing the research. This is long before we had the AI options that we have now. And then continued education, going and it had been like years that I had wanted to do my advanced aesthetic training. And so when I finally got the opportunity to do that, going in and learning about deeper parts of the skin and how to solve those problems. And then once you're working with people on that level, then then theoretically you're the expert to them and they have more questions. And so the questions prompt me to look for the answers, and then my curiosity prompts the learning, and there we go.
You bring up something really interesting when you said continuing education, and what I hear is like investing in your trade, investing in your craft, reinvesting in your business. And again, as someone who works with a lot of business owners, I really do see people who kind of take a stingy approach to their growth of like, I'll invest when I have the money versus the kind of flipping it on its head. I'm going to invest because I know that'll bring the money. And we see it in coaching, we see it in sales, we see it in starting a business. How do you, well, start with how much, or how, I don't know if you can quantify, but how often do you reinvest in your business, in your education, in your growth, in yourself, in order to make sure that you're always a step ahead?
Yeah. Well, I want to address the investment part. I think to me, establishing a return on that investment is really important. And so I personally find it really important to talk to people that I trust about that level of investment versus the return and what that looks like. And, thankfully I have a father who I can talk to about this stuff with. Thankfully, I've had you to talk to about what is the investment of personal or professional growth, and then what at the back end of that, what is that going to get me, and is that enough? And so I've been able to work through that with people that I trust.
Smart.
So that's first and foremost. And this comes down to having a team of people, like a CPA that I absolutely trust. What does this mean to invest into this instead of into this? What about, and talking with a financial advisor, talking to other people who have been in the industry longer than me. I'm still, deeply connected to the educator at my advanced aesthetics course, because she's just a wealth of information and help and support. And sometimes it is emotional support, and sometimes it's brass tacks. So I would say leaning on others that you trust that are more experienced or have a variety of experiences is key. And then as far as how often, I certainly couldn't financially quantify my investment in myself, but it goes without saying, I'm pretty fortunate that I don't have the spouse and children. I say distraction, and that's the only part that I'm trying to quantify, is that I don't have those distractions in my life. And so, I inadvertently invest in myself a lot.
And pour a lot.
Goal setting and discipline setting and book reading and devotionals and meditation. That's all stuff that's just super part of my normal daily activity.
I would second that, because I've seen a lot of people, and this can happen in sort of big little small towns or small big towns, where people almost treat their business like a hobby. And one thing I've noticed about you from, I mean, is it 15 years that it's a long time. Well, pre
Yeah.
my daughter. So you knew me before I had Averly. So 16 or
No,
more years.
no, it was,
Baby. Okay. So 15 years we've known
yep.
each other, but you've never treated your business like a hobby. You've always been very serious, very committed. And I realize for different people in different seasons of life, I mean, there are plenty of entrepreneurs who do have kids and are married, and that does have to look different. But to your point, I think it's important we recognize we can have anything. We can't always have everything. And so, but I love the concept and of taking your business seriously, reinvesting, not just money. I mean, yes, money, but time and energy and vision setting, goal setting. I liked that you said discipline setting. I think that that's incredible. What do you feel like are a couple key disciplines, either that you are living into now, or maybe you did previously that you feel like really helped you get to where you are now?
Um, well, I think it depends on the discipline. There have been disciplines that, like one year, I was just committed to getting through the Bible chronologically, right? And what that discipline allowed for me to have is a focus on something that wasn't work. And it wasn't designed to take up a bunch of my time. It wasn't designed to be a distraction, but that allowed me to maybe dip into that, think about something else other than work, um, and practice that discipline. One of the things I did this last year, which was just really a blast, was each month I practiced a different discipline. And I think in some cases, certain resolutions or goals can feel daunting if they are supposed to last a year or 3 months, or sometimes 100 days can feel so overwhelming. But I thought anything can be done in 30 days. And so each month was something different. And January was only consume wholesome content. So the definition of that was anything I'd let a 5-year-old listen to, read, or watch. Of course, I chose the shortest month to have no alcohol. Um, and then March was a doozy because it was no profanity. And, it's amazing how there's certain behaviors you might have that are habitual or around certain people that you don't even know that you're doing it. And so to practice that discipline, there was a punishment. It was $100 for every cuss word went to charity. And so it was, like not just a discipline, but it was also a hold me to it, not just say I'm not gonna I'm gonna
Right.
cuss a little less, right? So and then of course the year went on with other disciplines, and it just allowed me to have a focus on something outside of work, outside of that, that could just help build my character and practice the ability to just say no to something for a little while.
I love it. I love it. Well, the series again is called Relentless Pursuit. So obviously, I wanted to talk to you because you're someone that I view as relentless, meaning always, striving, working through hard things, not just throwing in the towel when challenges strike. What would you say has been your most difficult season, and how did you persevere and grow through it and come out on the other side?
Yeah. Um, well, so staffing and managing people is undoubtedly my biggest struggle. And through the enormous amounts of conversations that I have with people who are in all sorts of different industries, staffing is the consistent difficulty that people have. So this is not personal to me that staffing is difficult. It's not personal to my staff that being managed is difficult. Particularly for my industry, it's a trade, and so I think when you do find that person that is easy to quote unquote manage, inevitably then they'll want to go out on their own and start their own business, right? So that's kind of the problem that you get when you finally maybe have a team of people that are working well for you, and making staffing easy. This last summer and fall was a really dark, very, very dark time for me. Um, it was hard to see certain people that I think were people I wanted to partner with for the rest of my life go off and start their own thing. Even in a supportive way, and supporting them in that journey, it just was like a personal loss. It was eye-opening that certain business relationships that had lasted a really long time were not great and needed to change. And so over this last summer and fall, it's been a real cleaning of house. And now down to just a couple staff, and yet a 3,000 square foot space of a spa, I'm constantly faced with what's the best course of action. Do I continue to staff and train and fire and or they leave, staff, train, fire, and leave? And I have come to realize that my bread and butter and my passion is client care. And so I don't have time for that level of staffing. And I have to really sit with what are my options going forward. And at this very moment, it doesn't feel like the options that are presented to me as far as people who are interviewing to be estheticians at Phiz Spa. I'm being really cautious, and I'm being very mindful, and I'm being very choosy and picky about how I move forward. And I'm also being very open to what this industry or what this building that I have is supposed to do. It might just mean, renting space out to certain people. It might mean that there's a new level of vitality and skincare or wellness and personal care that I'm not aware of yet that's around the corner. But I've set myself up to be in a space of patience and openness and waiting for that opportunity to come forward.
How do you, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that for most people, particularly entrepreneurs, where everything kind of rises and falls on you, there are times where it does feel like it might be easier to like, I'm done, I'm out. How whatever that looks like. Maybe it's, it's going to look a lot of different ways, but how have you chosen in difficult, challenging times to keep going? Where have you, what has helped you keep going when you don't feel like it? What has helped you, wake up, show up, move forward when it's hard?
Okay, so this is one of the funniest stories, but when I first started Phiz Spa, I started renting a space close to downtown, and it was an older building, and it just was lined with all of these single paned windows, and it just needed a lot of construction and a lot of remodel. And so I had decided to paint the frames of the windows this really glossy black. And it was advised that I turn the thermostat up and on so that it would dry faster, because it just wasn't drying. Well, it was January, and so it was cold outside, and the thermostat was turned on warm on the inside. And so the next day, I showed up to the spa that I'm building, and we're painting, so we're at the final stages of it being done, and desperately trying to get in there so that I can start seeing clients and make money instead of spending money. And I walked in, and every single window just had black paint dripping down the windows, pooled up in the windowsills, and then dripping down the freshly painted walls.
Oh, no.
It looked like a horror movie.
Oh, no.
And I walked in by myself, and then my folks who were helping me walked in a little bit behind me. And I stared and cried and just riddled with fear. And by the time my folks had shown up and saw what we, describe as the scariest moment ever, I immediately just started thinking about my exit strategy. okay, well, if this doesn't work, then what? If this doesn't work, then what? And I, walked through the ideas of what is my lease and how, what would it look like to get out of it and what job could I do to sustain my personal expenses and then the expense of having this lease for a year or two. And, how, I just created this exit strategy, which to me was a little bit of a safety net to remind myself that it's not all over. There are other opportunities and other ways that we can move forward. And that showed up again. Well, and then when I moved into our now building that I own, and I mean, I bought it October 2020. I did remodel on it. We opened January 1st, 2021. Then we had an ice storm February 14th, and a tree, the one tree I didn't touch,
Oh, no.
came crashing through the roof and ceiling. And I remember staring at it and almost comatose, and again thinking, okay, what is the reality of this situation? What am I really facing here? And what is the worst that could happen? And then how do I push through the tasks that are involved in the worst case scenario? And then I think once I get through that rational part, I think about the personal part of it all. And I mean, all the ways that I've been propelled into this industry has definitely felt supernatural. It's felt something that was a yes, I have a passion for it because I'm invested in it, but I feel like my personal faith has had such a role in course correcting and keeping me on a path, and reminding me who I really am outside of
So being
the
anchored to
business.
something bigger than yourself is that.
Absolutely.
And then the other piece I hear is having a plan B or a plan C or D or E, which is interesting because I'm wired that way too. I'm definitely, there's sometimes you'll hear people talk about like burn your boats. You have to, no other option. And I think I understand why people say that, because also death of goals is zigzagging and chasing the shiny thing all the time. So you have to
Sure.
have a degree of follow through.
Yes.
But I love that you can, basically what I'm hearing is you can stay calm by knowing like I'm not trapped. I've got options. So how do you balance having options but still staying the course, not chasing shiny object syndrome? Like how do you follow through?
It's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think just recently somebody sent me a link to I think it was New York Times article, and it just made them think of me. And it's this, I think it's maybe a dermatologist and an esthetician who are opening something up in New York, and the whole article is about focusing on acne, and they're acne experts, and they don't do anything else but acne. And I was able to respond to this friend, like, that's really exciting that they know what they want to do and that they are able to focus on that. I think for me, I am still writing what does my client, where is my client at and what do they want? And so that I have to be adaptable. I think too, I mean, my industry specifically has changed so much in the last 20 years. And I've been on the front lines of watching that happen. And then, but at the same time, knowing that certain standards are paramount and consistency and all of that is so important, because as people ebb and flow in this industry or come in and go out and want to change things, people still know that Phiz Spa is going to be there for your appointment when you show up. We're still going to hold strong values about sustainability. We're still going to keep our time spots, a responsible time frame. Our price point is going to be appropriate and reasonable. Our products are going to be the top of the line. Our standards about scheduling and clients coming to their appointments and doing all of that is still gonna be a priority.
What I'm
And
hearing
so
is your client facing, like putting the client experience first as your through line. You're adaptable with how.
I have
You're
to be, yes.
adaptable with what that looks like. But
Yes.
the sort of the burn your boats was on the client facing side, while everything else remains able to be,
Flexible.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what gives you hope for the future? What are you excited about? What has you excited right now?
Undoubtedly, this new wealth of information around peptides has been an incredible journey for me. And talk about continued ed. I'm up every morning and reading up on it and learning more about it. It's still in the research phase of peptides. And what peptides are these amino acids that our body produces, and it helps send new wiring, receptors to the brain for your body to do what your body is meant to do. And so instead of certain supplements or medicines or other therapies, there are a myriad of peptides out there that can be suited for what your needs are. And so if it's cell repair, if it's muscle repair, if it's cognitive function, anxiety, certainly a lot of people are concerned about the GLP-1. They're really focused on the GLP-1 weight loss. And in peptide world, we have a GLP-3, which, news to you, I've lost 50 pounds using.
Wow.
And so, yes, the weight loss has been incredible and helpful, but it's also reduced certain food noises. So taking a month off of alcohol is not a problem anymore, because it's reduced any of my desire for alcohol or sweets. And so that, of course, has had an effect on my inflammation. So I get out of bed in the morning without any sort of tightness and tender and soreness, and I get going, and the peptides that are important to me for my cortisol levels really help with obviously brain function, but just my body working the way it's supposed to. And so I've spent less money. I've spent money on peptides, but I've spent less money because I don't need to go to my massage therapist, right? And, oh, please fix me just for that to last a couple hours, or go to the doctor and figure out this or that. It's been epically life-changing, and quite frankly, the cortisol peptides are, I think, what got me through those dark months of loss and change this year, and have allowed me to have a much more calmer reaction and response to things that would have really upset me and taken me down a different rabbit hole before.
Wow, that's I'll have lots of questions for you on that. Last question,
Yeah.
What's one belief or conviction that has helped you stay relentless?
One belief.
Two,
One belief
five.
is, I know, or your top 20. No, one belief is, off the top of my head, right now, answer this question, is I'm doing the best that I can. I'm doing the absolute best, hardest, filled with integrity, filled with passion, absolute best that I can. I don't have any doubt in my mind that I'm only giving a portion of myself, and that's all I can do. And my best is, on a lot of levels, a lot better than some can do right now. And in a lot of levels, it's not nearly as great as some other people can do.
But in your
But
race, it's your
in my world,
best.
and in my capacity, I am doing the absolute best, and I'm not I'm not falling short.
I love that. I love that because there can be this tendency to compare, or even even to compare against, like, I know people who've gone through like major health crises and they're comparing against when they were completely healthy versus now they're obviously our story with York, and my best in that season looked very different. So I love the my best concept. Thank you, Erin with Phiz Spa. She's the founder, she's the creator, she's the brains behind on Salem, Oregon, skincare, aesthetics, and peptides now. So check out Erin with Spa, and we'll put her contact info in the comments, in the notes. If you have any questions on those peptides, I know I do. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to Relentless Pursuit with Marjorie Dudley. If you want to build discipline, resilience, and results in your own work, that's what I help leaders and entrepreneurs do through coaching, speaking, and training. If today's conversation got you thinking about how you'd like to show up, you can find me through the links in the show notes. Until next time, stay relentless.